Oh boy, the NBA just got crazy. By the time you're seeing this, it's probably about 2 days old, so I am a little bit late, but I've had some stuff going on, which is why I could not have made this video early. But James Harden is a Philadelphia 76er, and Ben Simmons is a Brooklyn Nets. And there are a lot of split opinions between these two as to who won it. Did Philly win it? Did Brooklyn win it? Or was it a fair trade? And my opinion is split as well. But in today's video, I'm going to try my best to give you guys an analysis on the trade, and then I'll give you my opinion on who I think won the trade. I'll be talking about how this affects them now, in the future, their goals with these players, so on and so forth. We have a lot to talk about because there's a lot of points we have to look into if we're trying to find out who won this trade, so let's get right into it. First, I am just going to be looking at what each team received without giving any opinions, just to see who got the better deal on paper. For the Philadelphia 76ers, they got James Harden and Paul Millsap, and the Brooklyn Nets acquired Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and some picks. So that was literally just me explaining the trade. Now I will go over each team's, their side of the trade, and what they benefit from, what they might struggle with, and then I'll get into who I think won the trade. Let's start it off with Philly's side, and like I said, they got James Harden and Paul Millsap. Paul Millsap, I assume he was just a money salary counter, or he was just they didn't have enough players, so they had to add him in there. Paul Millsap is kind of irrelevant on the trade, so shout out to him. We're obviously all here to talk about James Harden. It's what makes the trade a blockbuster in the first place. James Harden is currently averaging 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 10 assists. He's averaging almost 5 turnovers a game, with about a steal and a block. His shooting splits are 41% from the field, 33% from 3, and 87% from the line. Obviously, compared to James Harden in previous years, they're definitely not as good as stats as what he usually has, but the reason why he's not scoring as much is because of the new rules, less free throw attempts, and even the basketball has a little bit of things to do with it. But still, James Harden is still a great facilitator. He can still run an offense, and he's very selfless with the ball. He does like to have the ball in his hands, but he does work well off ball, and he is fine with passing it up. And obviously, we've seen he could still do it when it comes to scoring. He was very inconsistent earlier in the season, but recently he's been having consistent 20-point games, and that's what you can ask for in a second option in James Harden, because he will be a second option come when he gets to Philadelphia, because Joel Embiid, he's just so good. He's number 1 now in MVP voting, I believe, and he's just so ball dominant. He's been on a tear recently, and James Harden and Joel Embiid make one of the scariest duos in the league. And then we can't forget they still have Tobias Harris as a third option, along with Tyrese Maxey, Furkan Korkmaz, etc. And they did give up a lot for James Harden, but it's not really to the point where they don't have any depth anymore. They have another star in James Harden, and it looks like hopefully he can go back to 100%. He'll start trying 100% because he looks downright lazy on the Brooklyn Nets, along with your main centerpiece in Joel Embiid, and then you have Tobias Harris and many other supporting players. The team really doesn't change much. The offense will still revolve around Joel Embiid, which is the only difference is James Harden will be starting the play, and Joel Embiid doesn't necessarily have to carry them every game. They still have shooting. They still have somewhat. Their defense might be a little bit questionable. Depends on what James Harden decides to do, if he actually wants to start trying. Joel Embiid, great defender, and then they have some other decent defenders on their team. And one thing about this trade, both teams are in contend now modes. And both teams, they want to win this year or next year. They have a very small window in terms of trying to win. So they're trying to win now. So with Philadelphia acquiring James Harden, I didn't think they would get a lot for Ben Simmons. I thought in desperation they would just get maybe a decent player and picks. But I'm really surprised they got James Harden. And in my opinion, Philadelphia did so well on this trade. I'm not saying they won it completely, but they definitely are going to benefit with this trade because Ben Simmons didn't even play. So you're basically trading Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and picks for James Harden. And I think Philadelphia are looking like contenders in the Eastern Conference and even in the NBA in general. Now, do I think they're going to win the NBA championship? No, because there will be some chemistry problems, maybe some defensive problems, but they are looking significantly better, and at the end of the day, that's their goal. So in my opinion, Philadelphia did very good on this trade. So now that I covered Philadelphia's side, I will now move on to Brooklyn's side, and they are the team that is really making me question why they did this trade. Like, I've done some research, and I'm back and forth between if I think they won it, or they lost it, or if it was just a fair trade, and I am so torn, so I'll try my best to give you a solid opinion, because I've been going back and forth these past 2 days on if they did good in the trade or not. Obviously, the centerpiece here is Ben Simmons. He's been putting up a crazy 0 points per game, 0 rebounds per game, 0 assists per game, 0 steals per game, 0 blocks per game, shooting 0% from 3 this season. No, but all kidding aside, Ben Simmons is not a bad player. He is still obviously going to be a great defensive piece for the next team, which is something they've lacked. They have a lot of depth. They're getting a lot of depth because they got Seth Curry and Andre Drummond. The offensive end is really what is really making me question this trade. Because looking at the Nets' big three, they obviously have Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving, one of the best offensive big threes we've seen so long, and the Brooklyn Nets were one of the best offensive teams we've ever seen last season. But somehow they went from KD, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving to an injured Kevin Durant, who will not return for another couple weeks, Kyrie Irving, who is only playing half their games, and Ben Simmons. So these next couple of weeks is really going to be crucial for the Brooklyn Nets, because we have to see if Ben Simmons is going to be able to run an offense. He's a great playmaker and a great finisher. Like, he can get to the rim with ease. He's a 6'10" athletic point guard, but he probably will be playing along the lines of a small forward or power forward. And I still expect him to be a great piece for the Nets, but when a guy like Kevin Durant returns and when Kyrie Irving plays in the away games, Ben Simmons cannot always have the ball in his hand. Thus, he will be moved to the corner or in the paint to get a bucket. But the problem is, Ben Simmons does not work well off ball because of his lack of shooting. So the Nets' offense will constantly be changing. One game, Ben Simmons is going to run the offense, and then Kyrie Irving is going to run the offense in the away game. Then Kevin Durant's going to return, he's going to run the offense. So while although they did get some extra depth, and they have a really good shooting team surrounding Ben Simmons, this is not Ben Simmons' team in any way. And Brooklyn has tried too hard. They've been the team fits Ben Simmons more than it fits Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving, and that's not what you want. Also, the Nets were trying to contend, and I guess maybe while making this trade, they thought it would put them in a contending stage. But personally, I don't think that is the case. I already said they're going to have some offensive problems with always changing their system. They're also going to have some chemistry problems, and this team is always unhealthy. They traded a polished veteran who's proved himself in James Harden for a young Ben Simmons, who, let's be real, might not even be crucial to the team. We saw how bad he was in last year's playoffs. Brooklyn, when they made the James Harden trade, they were on a 9-game losing streak, so I get it, they wanted to make some trades, and they traded for Ben Simmons. But in my opinion, I think they rushed the Big Three era a little bit too quick. They didn't even give them one playoff run together, because let's be real, they were never all healthy last playoffs, so we never really gave them a chance. They rushed it, they thought, you know what, this team is not going to give us a championship, and they might have been right, but they're always going to have that sense of what if Ben Simmons does not turn out to be that guy for the Nets. They're going to be thinking, what if we kept James Harden? What if this? What if that? And it's just going to be a whole sense of we shouldn't have done this trade. And personally, I think the Nets are going to be regretting this trade because Ben Simmons is just such an unpredictable player. And then with off-court stuff, injuries, chemistry problems, systems always changing. They have Kyrie Irving and Ben Simmons on the same basketball team. You think that's going to work out? I can't imagine the off-court problems this team is going to have. So I think you can tell that I obviously have the Philadelphia 76ers winning this trade because I think both teams' goals were to contend, and with this trade, Philadelphia gets put in a contending place, while Brooklyn does not. I think it lowers their chances of winning the championship. Does it mean the Nets are going to be worse with Ben Simmons? No, but I just don't see him winning a championship with the Nets. I think it's more likely that the Sixers come away with it. So that is my opinion on the blockbuster Ben Simmons and James Harden trade. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and comment down below who you think won this trade, because it can go either way. I think I was talking a lot of smack about the Nets, but they're still not going to be a bad team. So comment down below who you think they won this trade. Personally, I think the Sixers, because there's going to be just so much problems with this Nets team, both off-court and on-court. And yeah, let me know who you think won the trade. That's going to wrap up this video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.